Welcome to The Explainer. So, what does it really take to build a meaningful life, a meaningful career? Today, we're diving into 50 years of answers from one incredible source, Windy Dryden's 50 Not Out, a therapist's incredibly raw and insightful look back on half a century of helping people.
Right off the bat, the book opens with a surprising confession. Dryden just says, I decided to write without a plan and see what happened. And then he adds, that this is pretty much exactly how his career worked out, not by following some grand blueprint, but just by having a spirit of discovery.
So that's the big question for us, right? What can 50 years of just seeing what happened actually teach us about real resilience, about finding a purpose, and about the very delicate art of helping other human beings? Well, the first lesson starts somewhere you probably wouldn't expect. Okay, lesson 1, it's all about finding your voice. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. Dryden's story doesn't begin in a therapist's chair. It actually starts with this really profound personal struggle, a severe childhood stammer.
And he takes us right there, into the memory. Picture it, a grammar school classroom. The deputy head, this really intimidating figure, just storms in, sees a young Dryden out of his seat, and just yells, "You boy, what's your name, boy?"
And his reply, wow. It wasn't just a name, it was a physical struggle. It's D, David, D, Dabin. I mean, that's not some clinical description. That's the sound of pure anxiety, a feeling that, honestly, we can all recognize. But here's the thing. His real breakthrough didn't come from any formal speech therapy. Nope. It came from a 2-minute radio interview with the comedian Michael Bentine, who also had a stammer. Bentine's attitude was just, if I stammer, I stammer, too bad. That simple idea became Dryden's mantra. It was this huge psychological shift that freed him up in a way no technique ever could.
So that personal breakthrough, that idea of just embracing who he was, well, that became the cornerstone of his entire professional philosophy. Which brings us right to lesson 2, the search for a therapeutic home.
And look, finding a therapy that felt right for him, it was definitely not a straight line. Back in the mid-70s, he tried client-centered therapy, but it felt way too restrictive. Then he gave psychodynamic therapy a shot, but it just didn't click. It wasn't until 1978, when he stumbled upon Rational Emotive Therapy, or REBT, that he finally felt like, okay, this is it. This is my therapeutic home. And then much later, he'd add another home by embracing the focus and efficiency of single-session therapy.
Okay, so he's found his voice, he's found his professional home. The next logical question is, how do you turn all that into a real framework for actually helping people? And that brings us to lesson 3. The art of helping.
This is where things get really interesting. He takes the classic idea of the working alliance, the bond between a client and a therapist, and he adds his own critical piece to the puzzle. You've got the 3 standard pillars, bonds, goals, and tasks. But Dryden adds a 4th, views. He argued that for therapy to really work, both people need to have a shared understanding of what's going on. It just makes for a much richer, more complete model. And this way of thinking, it wasn't just about that one model. It really colored his entire outlook. He became a champion for what he calls a pluralistic perspective. So instead of that rigid, my way is the only right way kind of thinking, he pushed for a both-and mindset, recognizing that, hey, different people need different approaches.
But maybe the most revealing, the most powerful lesson in the whole book doesn't come from his successes at all. It comes from a time of intense professional struggle. This is lesson 4, resilience.
Okay, get this. Between 1983 and 1985, after taking a voluntary redundancy package, Windy Dryden applied for 55 different jobs. And out of those 55 applications, he received 54 rejections. And yet, through all that constant outside rejection, how many times did he reject himself? Exactly 0.
I mean, talk about practicing what you preach. He was literally living his own therapeutic philosophy. His words were, I refuse to devalue myself. He consciously, deliberately separated the event, getting rejected for a job, from his own sense of self-worth.
That right there is resilience in action. And this wasn't just some story he tells. You can see the raw data right here. Look at this. It was relentless. 13 applications for lectureships, 15 for practitioner posts, 10 for admin jobs, a grand total of 55 attempts, 21 interviews. I mean, each one of those was a chance to get your hopes up and then have them smashed. Seeing it laid out like this really grounds his incredible mental strength in a pretty harsh reality.
Okay, so after all that, overcoming the stammer, finding his professional way, surviving this insane period of rejection, what's the final lesson from a 50-year career? What does it all boil down to?
The secret to his longevity, he says, wasn't just about gritting his teeth and pushing through. He defines a meaningful career as this perfect blend of genuine interest, staying true to your core values, and this is the really key part, having enough variety to keep from burning out. He chose his passion over the bigger payday his dad wanted for him, and he was constantly shifting between being a therapist, a trainer, a writer, and a supervisor. And yet, after all this time, after all this wisdom, you might expect some grand, definitive statement. But he doesn't give us one. Instead, he leaves us with a question he's still asking himself. When should I retire? It's such an honest moment, and it makes his whole journey feel so much more relatable to all of us. But he doesn't just leave us there in that vulnerable place. He ends with this powerful, kind of defiant thought. The main title of this book is 50 Not Out. Although there will be an end to my career, this is not it. And that's it. It's this uplifting, powerful reminder that the search for meaning never really stops. Every milestone is just another point in the game.